Welcome. This presentation will provide a brief introduction to the Overlay Reserve Account. Overlay is an account established to fund anticipated real and personal property tax abatements, exemptions, and uncollected taxes in any fiscal year. The account also funds interest due to taxpayers when abatements of paid taxes result in refunds. It may also be referred to as allowance for abatements and exemptions, or overlay. The amount is determined by the local Board of Assessors each fiscal year. The overlay is funded through the annual tax rate setting process without town meeting or city council appropriation. However, it must be accounted for when preparing your budget, just like any appropriation that is funded within the general fund. In other words, it's not outside of the balanced budget requirement. This is a screenshot of page 2 of the tax rate recapitulation sheet, a worksheet submitted as part of the tax rate setting process. The overlay is raised through taxation under Part 2, which lists the amount to be raised for abatements and exemptions. In this example, a community has raised $169,901.70 in overlay for the current fiscal year. To arrive at the annual overlay estimate, the assessors must analyze what is necessary to fund anticipated real and personal property tax abatements, exemptions, and receivables during the upcoming fiscal year, as well as for all previous fiscal years. Assessors are cautioned to be conservative in their estimates by considering historical trends and changing real estate market conditions. In addition to anticipated property tax abatements and exemptions for the current fiscal year, the overlay reserve for any year should at least equal taxes still outstanding in that year and the potential liability of cases pending before the State Appellate Tax Board or under appeal. Assessors are encouraged to seek input from other members of the financial management team. The assessor can review a 5-year average of abatements and exemptions granted on the overlay worksheet or OL-1 in DLS Gateway. A reasonable projection for these items for the next year can be based on this information and submitted to the Division of Local Services as part of the tax rate process. The assessor must also consider amounts associated with pending appellate tax board cases and receivables. As part of the annual tax rate approval process, the Division of Local Services determines whether the overlay amount raised is reasonable, meaning it is adequate to cover anticipated abatements and exemptions, potential appellate tax board cases, and property tax receivables for all necessary fiscal years. The reasonableness of the account balance will be judged based on the following factors: the account balance as of June 30th of the previous fiscal year, abatements and exemptions granted and payments made for prior fiscal years from July 1st to the date the tax rate is submitted, the average of granted abatements and exemptions and outstanding receivables for the 5 previous fiscal years, whether local values are scheduled for review and certification by DLS, the potential abatement liability in cases pending before or on appeal from the Appellate Tax Board, and any other significant factors known to DLS. Overlay surplus is the balance in the overlay account in excess of the amount of property taxes remaining to be collected or abated. Taxes owed on property secured by a tax title should be included as part of the surplus calculation. Money in the overlay account that is not or will not be needed may be declared surplus by the Board of Assessors. The Chief Executive Officer in a city or town may also request that the Board of Assessors release any surplus. Within 10 days of this request, the assessors must provide a certification of the excess amount of overlay available to transfer, if any. The accountant must verify the amount authorized by the Board of Assessors prior to becoming part of overlay surplus. An overlay surplus is then available to be appropriated for any lawful purpose by town meeting or the city council. Any amount not appropriated by June 30th closes to undesignated fund balance in the general fund to become part of the free cash calculation. A deficit occurs when the balance in the overlay account is insufficient to cover the total of all year's abatements and exemptions charged to the overlay during that year. Overlay deficits must be provided for in the next fiscal year's tax rate unless otherwise provided for. Alternatively, any anticipated overlay deficits can be funded through appropriation. As previously reviewed, this is a screenshot of page 2 of the tax rate recapitulation sheet. The overlay deficit is raised through taxation under Part 2B, number 4, Total Overlay Deficit. In this example, the community did not have an overlay deficit. A deficit did not exist because the amount in the overlay account exceeded abatements and exemptions granted. For more information on this topic, please visit mass.gov/DLS. In addition, please refer to the Commissioner of Revenue's official guidance, Information Guideline Release, IGR 2017-23 on overlay and overlay surplus.